What happens when living creatures are given everything they want, with absolutely no dangers or struggles? In the late 1960s, a scientist built a perfect world for mice to see how a crowded society behaves. This famous study is known as Universe 25, or the Mouse Utopia Experiment. Today, we will explore this fascinating history, step by step. You will learn how the mice behaved when all their needs were met, and how their perfect world slowly fell apart. By the end of this video, you will see why this study shocked the world, and what it can teach us about our own human communities today. Let's start at the beginning of the story. A researcher named John Calhoun wanted to know exactly what happens to a society when a population grows too large. To find out, he created a giant, specially designed metal enclosure that was a complete paradise for mice. He famously called this custom-built environment Universe 25. This indoor enclosure was about 9 feet square and 4.5 feet high. Inside this space, the mice had absolutely everything they could ever dream of. There was unlimited clean water and fresh food available at all times from 16 different feeding stations. There were also plenty of comfortable, built-in nesting boxes for families to live in, giving them easy access to shelter. The scientist also made sure there were absolutely no predators, like cats or snakes, to harm or scare them. The indoor temperature was kept perfectly warm and comfortable at all times, and the entire place was cleaned thoroughly every single week to prevent any diseases from spreading. Calhoun started this historic behavior experiment with just 4 pairs of healthy mice, 4 males and 4 females. They were chosen carefully to make sure they were strong. These 8 lucky mice were given a perfect world with 0 struggle, 0 hunger, and 0 fear. They did not have to work or compete for resources. Everything was completely free, and their lives were set up to be entirely easy and stress-free from the very first day. At first, the experiment went exactly as you might expect. The 8 mice looked around their new home, realized they were safe, and started to enjoy their perfect life. With unlimited food and no dangers, they began to multiply very quickly. Every 55 days, the number of mice in the enclosure doubled. The mice were happy, healthy, and spent their time eating, grooming, and raising their babies. This initial phase was a time of massive growth and peace. The population quickly grew from 8 mice to several hundred. Because there was plenty of space and food for everyone, the community thrived. For a while, it truly looked like a successful utopia where everyone could live in harmony. By the time the population reached over 600 mice, things began to change. Even though there was still plenty of physical space left in the enclosure, the mice started crowding together in certain areas. They preferred to gather around the feeding stations at the same time. This constant crowding started to create social stress. In a natural environment, young mice would leave their parents and move away to find new territory. But in Universe 25, there was nowhere else to go. The enclosure was a closed world. Young mice had to stay in the crowded spaces with the older mice. Because the older mice lived much longer due to the perfect conditions, they held on to their social positions. The younger generation found themselves with no clear role or purpose in the community, which slowly caused tension to rise. Have you ever felt stressed in a super crowded room or a busy city? Imagine living in that crowd every single day. As the overcrowding grew worse, the normal behavior of the mice began to break down completely. Male mice are naturally supposed to defend their territory and protect their families. But under the constant stress of the crowd, many males gave up. They became passive and stopped protecting their nesting boxes. Because the males were no longer defending the homes, the female mice had to become aggressive to protect their babies. This sudden change in roles caused a lot of confusion and stress within the families. Eventually, the pressure became too much for the mother mice. They sometimes became so stressed by the crowded environment that they neglected their own young. Many babies did not survive because the normal family bonds were falling apart under the weight of the social pressure. As the social structure collapsed further, a completely new group of mice emerged. The scientists called them the beautiful ones. These mice were very different from the others. While the rest of the enclosure was loud and chaotic, the beautiful ones completely separated themselves from the crowd. They spent their entire day doing only 3 things: eating, sleeping, and grooming their fur. They refused to fight, defend territory, or interact with other mice. Because they never fought, their fur remained perfectly smooth, shiny, and healthy, without any scars. However, they also lost all interest in social life. They did not want to mate or raise families. They lived completely isolated inside their own minds, even though they were surrounded by hundreds of other mice. The population of Universe 25 eventually peaked at 2,200 mice. This was actually much less than the physical capacity of the enclosure, which could hold up to 3,800 mice. Food and water were still completely unlimited, but the social damage was already done. The birth rate began to drop dramatically. Almost no new babies were being born, and the ones that were born were often not cared for. The younger generation simply did not know how to act like normal mice because they had never seen healthy behavior. Even when the older, aggressive mice started to die off and the enclosure became less crowded, the remaining mice did not change their ways. The beautiful ones and the passive females had completely forgotten their natural instincts. The society had reached a point of no return. With no new births and the current population getting older, the community entered a final, quiet phase. The mice simply lived out their days eating and sleeping until they died of old age. The experiment that started with so much hope and plenty ended in a complete extinction. Every single mouse in Universe 25 eventually died out, leaving the perfect paradise completely empty. John Calhoun concluded that when all physical needs are met and social space becomes crowded, a population can experience a first death, which is the death of their spirit and social behavior. The physical death of the population follows naturally after that. It was a sobering lesson for the scientific community. When the results of Universe 25 were published, people immediately started comparing the mice to human society. Many grew worried that modern cities, with their high-density apartments and crowded spaces, might create similar social problems for humans. However, it is very important to remember that humans are much more complex than mice. We have culture, language, technology, and the ability to think about our future. We can design better cities, create new ways to connect, and build supportive networks to handle stress. The experiment does not mean humanity is doomed to collapse. Instead, it serves as a helpful warning. It reminds us that we need more than just food, water, and a roof to be happy. We also need a sense of purpose, meaningful social roles, and strong connections with the people around us to keep our society healthy. What do you think is the most important thing a society needs to stay healthy and happy? Let me know your ideas in the comments below. The biggest lesson from the Mouse Utopia is that a life with zero struggle can sometimes be dangerous for social creatures. Challenges and goals give us a reason to learn, grow, and cooperate with each other. When the mice had all their problems solved for them by the scientist, they lost the need to interact. In our own lives, overcoming small challenges every day helps us build resilience and brings us closer to our friends and family. It shows that a little bit of struggle is actually a natural and healthy part of life. If you found this deep dive into scientific history interesting, please take a second to hit the like button. It helps our channel share these thought-provoking stories with more viewers. Universe 25 remains one of the most famous and debated studies in history. It teaches us that true well-being requires a careful balance of comfort, community, and purpose. By understanding the mistakes of the past, we can work together to build a better, more supportive world for our future. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you do not miss our next video about fascinating history and science experiments. Thank you so much for watching, and click on the next video on your screen to keep learning.